Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a YouTube video you sent in, and it's going to be a wild one. This one's about black holes and eternity and, yeah, the Bible.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are some big concepts to tackle all at once.
Right. So we'll see where this deep dive takes us. Let's jump right in. So the video starts by asking this really bold question, like, could black holes actually be the dwelling place of God as described in the Bible?
That's a pretty big question to start off with.
Yeah, right off the bat. But it's a fascinating one for sure.
It definitely is. And I think it speaks to this kind of age-old desire we have to try and reconcile what we believe spiritually with what we're learning scientifically about the universe. You know, how do we make sense of these two things that seem so different?
Exactly. And that's kind of what this video is getting at. So it goes on to talk about this concept of eternity, which the Bible describes as this place that's beyond human comprehension, where time doesn't exist and space is infinite.
Yeah, that's a concept that's really puzzled theologians and philosophers for centuries, you know. From Augustine to Kant, they've all wrestled with this idea of a realm that exists outside of our normal understanding of time. It really pushes the boundaries of what we can even imagine.
It does. And then the video brings in black holes, these regions of space-time where gravity is so strong that not even light can escape.
Right, and that's where things get really interesting. Because the laws of physics, as we know them, they basically break down inside a black hole. Time slows down as you get closer to what's called the event horizon, the point of no return. And space becomes warped in ways that are really hard to visualize.
So is it possible then that this warping of time, where it seems to slow down from our perspective outside the black hole, could that be a way to understand the idea of timelessness and eternity?
It's a really compelling parallel, I think. If you can imagine watching a clock fall into a black hole, from your perspective outside of the black hole, that clock would look like it's ticking slower and slower and slower as it got closer to the event horizon, until eventually it would appear to just stop completely. It would essentially be frozen in time.
So like time is standing still. And then the video goes on to talk about something called the singularity at the heart of a black hole, which is this point where all the matter collapses into an infinitely small point.
Yeah, the singularity. That's one of the most mind-boggling concepts in all of physics. It's this point where density and gravity become infinite. And everything we know about how the universe works just kind of falls apart.
So that's where the video suggests that. Maybe this breakdown of physics inside a black hole hints at something bigger. Something beyond what we currently understand, like a connection to a divine realm.
It is a provocative idea, for sure. If the laws of physics as we know them don't apply there, then what does? I mean, could these extreme environments be giving us a glimpse into a deeper reality? One that maybe even intersects with these spiritual concepts of eternity and the divine?
It definitely makes you think outside the box. But then the video brings up this kind of contradiction. Because the Bible often associates God with light, yet black holes trap light. So how do you reconcile those two things?
Well, that's where I think symbolic interpretation comes in. You know, some theologians might say that the light associated with God isn't referring to actual physical light, but rather to a kind of spiritual presence that goes beyond those physical limitations.
It's more of a metaphorical light.
Exactly. A light that exists on a different plane, beyond what we can perceive with our senses.
Okay, that makes sense. But then the video takes things even further and starts talking about black holes as gateways, like portals to other parts of the universe, or even to other universes.
Right, so here we're getting into the realm of wormholes. These are theoretical tunnels that connect different points in space-time. And the idea is that a wormhole could act as a shortcut, allowing you to travel across vast distances, maybe even bending time itself.
Wait, time travel through a black hole? No, I don't even know if I can wrap my head around this.
I know it sounds crazy, but it's actually based on Einstein's theory of general relativity, which describes how gravity warps space-time. And that warping, at least theoretically, could create these shortcuts through the fabric of the universe.
So if these wormholes do exist, could they actually be pathways, not just through space, but through time as well? Could they lead to that timeless realm of eternity described in religious texts?
What's a very intriguing concept. Imagine a black hole acting as a sort of cosmic door, leading to a realm where our normal understanding of time just doesn't apply anymore. It really blurs the lines between science fiction and theoretical physics. It makes you question the very nature of reality.
This is all pretty mind-bending stuff, but the video does make it clear that this is more of an exploration than a definitive statement. It's not saying that black holes are literally the dwelling place of God.
Right. It's more about exploring this intersection between science and spirituality. and using black holes as a lens through which to look at these big existential questions.
Black holes definitely force us to confront the limits of our knowledge and to consider possibilities that we might never have imagined otherwise.
And that's where the real value of this exploration lies. It's not about finding all the answers, but about being open to new perspectives, new ways of thinking about the universe and our place in it.
It's like looking into the abyss and seeing a reflection of our own curiosity, our own yearning to understand the mysteries that surround us.
It's true. There's something about black holes that just captures the imagination. It makes us want to know more, even if the answers might be beyond our grasp for now.
Yeah, it really is a humbling thought, isn't it? It is, and it makes you realize there's so much out there we still don't know. But speaking of things we don't know, the video brings up a potential problem with this whole black hole as eternity theory. If you think about it, black holes are these super dense, powerful objects, but the divine is often associated with concepts like light and expansiveness. Doesn't that seem kind of contradictory?
It's a good point, and I think this is where the video starts to dig a little deeper into both the science and the spiritual concepts. So, for example, even though black holes are incredibly dense, they also have this huge impact on the space around them. They shape the very fabric of the cosmos. They're not just these isolated points, they're dynamic forces that are crucial to how galaxies evolve.
So it's not just about their density, but their overall influence.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the light versus darkness thing? That still seems like a pretty big difference.
Yeah, and that's where the video suggests we might need to rethink how we're interpreting these concepts. You know, in some spiritual traditions, darkness isn't always seen as a bad thing, or the opposite of light. It can also represent the unknown, the primordial state that all of creation comes from.
So maybe it's not about literal light and darkness, but about forces that are beyond our human understanding.
Right. It's like our language, our way of making sense of things.
Yeah.
It might not be enough to describe realms that are outside of our everyday experience.
It's like trying to explain colors to someone who's been blind their whole life.
Exactly. You just can't capture the full experience with words.
And I guess what the video is getting at is that both science and spirituality are really attempts to grapple with the unknown, to find meaning in the mysteries around us.
Absolutely.
And maybe as our scientific knowledge keeps growing, we'll start to see more and more connections between these two seemingly separate realms.
It's definitely possible. And that's one of those exciting things about science. Every new discovery has the potential to change how we understand the universe. And maybe even to bridge that gap between what we can observe with our instruments and what we sense or intuit through our spiritual beliefs.
Okay, so let's talk about the singularity for a minute, because this is where I really start to get lost. The idea of everything collapsing into this infinitely small point, it's just mind-boggling.
It really is, and it shows us the limits of our current understanding of physics. We know our current models break down at the singularity because they can't handle the concept of infinite density. It's like trying to divide by zero. The equations just don't work.
So does that mean we'll never be able to understand what happens at the singularity?
Not necessarily, but it does mean we need new theories, new ways of thinking about the universe to make sense of these extreme environments. And that's really where the cutting edge of physics is right now.
It's like the singularity is challenging us to push our intellectual boundaries further, to come up with explanations that can account for something so unbelievably strange.
And who knows what we might learn along the way. Maybe a deeper understanding of the singularity will help us understand not just black holes, but the very origins of the universe itself.
That would be incredible. But let's go back to wormholes for a second. Is there any actual evidence that they exist?
Well, right now, wormholes are still very much in the realm of theoretical physics. We haven't observed them directly. And there's some pretty big challenges to their existence. For example, they would need to be stabilized by something called exotic matter, which has negative mass. And we haven't found any evidence of that yet.
So it's a cool concept, but probably not something we'll be traveling through anytime soon.
Probably not. But that doesn't mean we should completely rule them out. Throughout history, lots of scientific ideas that seemed crazy at first turned out to be true, like the idea of atoms or the curvature of space-time. Those were once met with skepticism, but now they're fundamental principles of science.
That's true. It's like that Arthur C. Clarke quote, "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." Maybe wormholes are just waiting for us to develop the magic to understand them.
I love that quote. And it speaks to the incredible potential of scientific inquiry.
And maybe someday we'll be able to travel through those cosmic shortcuts and explore realms that are completely beyond our reach right now.
That would be amazing.
But even if we never build a wormhole machine, Just the possibility that they exist changes how we see the universe. It suggests there might be connections out there, pathways that we haven't even begun to imagine.
Absolutely. And I think that sense of wonder, that openness to the unknown, that's really the core of both science and spirituality.
It's about recognizing that the universe is full of mysteries, and that our journey of discovery is far from over.
And that's what makes this whole conversation so fascinating. It pushes us to step outside our comfort zones, to embrace the unknown, and to consider possibilities that might seem strange or even impossible at first.
This video really does a great job of highlighting that. It's not about giving us all the answers, but about sparking our curiosity and encouraging us to think in new and different ways.
And that's what makes this whole exploration so rewarding.
Yeah.
It's not about finding all the answers. It's about asking the right questions and being open to whatever possibilities might emerge.
It's about embracing the mystery, the wonder, the sheer awe-inspiring vastness of it all.
And recognizing that even in the face of that vastness, our human minds can still grasp at least a little bit of its beauty and complexity.
It's about realizing that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves, and that our journey of understanding has only just begun. It really is humbling when you stop and think about it all.
It is, but it's also pretty amazing how much we've learned about the universe, you know? Like just a few hundred years ago, we didn't even know there were other galaxies out there.
It's true, and now we're talking about black holes as gateways to other universes and time travel. It's incredible how far we've come.
And it seems like we're learning more and more all the time.
Yeah.
With all these new telescopes and instruments, we're collecting more data than ever before.
Who knows what we'll discover next? But even with all this advanced technology, the video points out that we're still limited by our human perspective. We can observe black holes from a distance, but we can't actually experience what it's like to cross the event horizon.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
You know, we can create these mathematical models and make observations from afar, but we can't actually go inside a black hole. So there's always going to be an element of mystery there.
And maybe that's part of what makes them so fascinating, right?
Oh, absolutely. There's just something about black holes that sparks this sense of wonder and awe. They're so beyond our everyday experience, it forces us to really stretch our imaginations, to consider that reality might be a lot stranger than we think it is.
And the video definitely captures that sense of wonder.
It does.
It doesn't shy away from the big questions, even if we don't have all the answers yet.
And that's what's so great about this kind of exploration. It's not about finding all the answers. It's about asking the right questions and being curious. It's about pushing the boundaries of what we know and being open to the unknown. And maybe even discovering something about ourselves along the way.
Like our capacity for wonder and our desire to make sense of the universe.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope listeners will take away from this conversation?
I think the most important thing is to remember to be humble. The universe is vast and mysterious, and we're just starting to understand a tiny fraction of it. So we need to be open to new ideas, new ways of thinking, and even to the possibility that we might be wrong about some things.
So it's more about the journey of discovery than having all the answers figured out.
I think so. It's about recognizing that even when we're faced with uncertainty, there's still beauty and wonder to be found in exploring the universe.
Well said. This has been an amazing conversation. I feel like I have a whole new perspective on black holes and eternity and this connection between science and spirituality.
It's been a pleasure talking with you.
And to everyone listening out there, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and given you some new things to think about. Remember, the universe is full of mysteries, and it's up to all of us to explore them. So keep looking up at the stars and keep those questions coming. Until next time on The Deep Dive.